Hello watch enthusiasts. Now today I'd like to do a special about the Salon International de la Haute Horlogerie de Genève, the SIHH, which is of course a major show of new technology in terms of Swiss watchmaking, which of course has taken place over the last week. So today I'd like to talk about the dress watches released, and at least the ones which I think were the most notable in terms of new features and technologies. The first watch on this list is a wonderful addition to the Longines lineup, and this is the flagship Heritage 60th Anniversary 1957 to 2017. And this is a beautiful dress watch in a very classic sense, which harks back to the various watches produced by Longines in the 1950s. With a very simple dial, but with that beautiful finishing on the outer edge of the dial, with that brushed finish on that cream dial, with again those gold hands, gives this watch a very classic look, while retaining that typically Longines style, which made the flagship such an icon in the 50s. There are three versions of this watch available, one in steel, one in yellow gold, and one in rose gold. The rose gold and the yellow gold are limited to 60 pieces, while the steel is a 1957 homage to the year of this watch's inception. Inside this watch is an ETA 2892 base movement, which is an automatic Swiss-made movement of the higher grade of ETA, but still offers great functionality, without the date in this case giving the whole watch a very clean look. This aspect of the watch is furthered with that crocodile grain strap and that contrast stitching, which complements that very soft hue of the dial very, very nicely. The small seconds are also a very nice touch on this dial, with the automatic sign and script curving around that small subdial. And I think that cleans up the dial and removes any clutter while balancing the dial out very, very nicely. The narrow lugs are also a beautiful touch and make this watch, I think, a real collector's piece, and it certainly will become a sought-after watch, I think, considering the limited edition of this watch and how successful previous Heritage Longines have been. Finally, the size of this watch has been very nicely considered at 38.5mm, which is larger than previous 35mm Heritage offerings from Longines, but still manageable and still true to the original size, which is certainly a pleasure to see when a lot of vintage creations are not too true to the originals, while here we see a very, very good representation of what the original watch was. I think the only shame on this watch is the fact that it doesn't have a recreation of the original movement, which was of course a manually wound caliber produced in-house by Longines, which would have looked wonderful underneath that polished stainless steel case. But nonetheless, this ETA provides a great deal of reliability and serviceability in the future, which will be appreciated by a great deal of customers. Now, another watch which has been fully released this week, and I think is truly a wonderful addition to a range in the dress watch lineup, is the frosted gold 37mm Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. Of course, this watch is interesting because it's designed to be a woman's watch, but bizarrely has received far more interest from men wanting to own this 37mm, very, very beautifully finished, solid white gold watch. Equally, it's available in yellow gold, but my personal favourite has to be the white gold, to use that very simple and minimal aesthetic which this watch has. Of course, at base, this watch is very similar to other ladies' Audemars Piguet Royal Oaks. It's a 37mm watch, down from that 41 for the man's version, and combines this frosted finish, which is this particular new rough finish of gold, on the top of the bezel and on the bracelet and upper side of the case. Now, the sides are still brushed and there are polished bevels, which add to the complexity of the design, which I think complements the look very, very nicely. The dial is also finished to look exactly like the rest of the case and matches the colour beautifully, with that traditional cross style of finishing on the dial, which is so typical of Audemars Piguet. That tapestry dial is complemented very, very nicely with matching hands and indices around the dial, which match the case and the screws, and equally the writing on the crown very, very nicely. Of course, the reason for this watch's release is to celebrate 40 years of the Ladies' Royal Oak, which originally didn't come in this frosted finish at all, but this certainly does commemorate that nicely by offering a new design and a new finish to that typically classic 1970s and 80s design. Of course, the inner workings of this watch are, as ever, very, very impressive, as are the watches from Audemars Piguet, with a 60-hour power reserve, and the height of the watch is reduced to only 9.8mm, making it very, very wearable as a dress watch. Equally, that movement is that fantastic movement which has been seen in a great deal of AP Royal Oaks, which is extremely thin to an extent where the balance and the rotor has actually had to be inset into the movement to make the movement thin enough to be worn with this case, which I think is a true marvel of engineering and really does demonstrate the heritage of this watch and the craftsmanship inherent in all Audemars Piguet watches. Now, considering the huge success of this watch so far, I really wouldn't be surprised if a 41mm edition of this watch was released, simply due to the fact that so many men have been interested in this watch. Of course, 37mm is a very classic size, but nonetheless I think a lot of people will prefer a 41mm case. So I really wouldn't be surprised if I saw that at Baselworld this year, but of course only time will tell whether this actually becomes a reality. Now, I hesitated as to whether I should include this watch in this particular video, due to its very sporty demeanour, but I do think the new annual calendar version of the Royal Oak really did deserve a place. Now, this watch is more of a dress watch in my opinion because it has the rather underwhelming water resistance of 20, or rather 2 ATM, so 20 metres, which is of course very, very low and in fact less than a lot of other watches. I suspect this is down to those pushers on the side of the watch to change the date and so on. But nonetheless, it's still a beautiful watch, and of course in this new ceramic guise, it certainly is different. Now, in my opinion, this is the most discussed watch at the watch show this week, and that's down to the fact that this is the first non-metallic AP Royal Oak, and that really is a milestone for AP in producing a watch which isn't metallic in terms of its finishing and its case and bracelet, which brings an entirely new look to the classic and typically recognised Royal Oak. Of course, within this watch we see a very complex AP in-house calibre, with a pointer week, a month, season, day of the month, date, and equally the moon phase down there at 6 o'clock. This is all mixed in with a black, or at least very dark, tapestry-style dial, which is again complemented by those sharply contrasting silver indices and silver screws around the bezel. Now, in my opinion, the reason why AP have started off with this annual calendar as their first ceramic watch is because of the time taken to finish this case, and as the time needs to be refined and the finishing has to be refined, I imagine will implement this in their less expensive models. Of course, the time taken to make this watch is also increased by that hardness of the ceramic material, and that's because of course the manufacturing process have been refined for steel and metals, but are still in their infancy really for this kind of case in terms of the ceramic. So therefore, this watch takes about 6 times as long to make as the equivalent steel one. For example, the bracelet takes 30 hours to the normal 5 to produce, which really is a very long time to produce such a small section of this wonderful watch. However, what I think is most impressive about this watch is the thickness. At 9.5mm thick, this watch really is a superlative dress watch, if you're looking for something which is very different and rather unique, as this watch is of course a first really for AP. Also, I would imagine this watch really will become an icon in future as the first non-metallic Audemars Piguet in the standard Royal Oak lineup. Of course, A.Lange and Söhne have released a number of watches at SIHH this year, but I think their most notable and most impressive model must be the Tourbograph pour le mérite model. And this is an interesting watch because it's a platinum cased watch with various finishes to give it a clean look. But in its very, very classic design on the dial, it really does have some incredible innovation and some very classical features, such as the chain and fusée system inside it. Of course, this was incorporated into the first Pour le Mérite, which was of course a classical watch in the 90s, released by A.Lange and Söhne. And this new one is certainly a very interesting one with a rattrapante chronograph and with the two-handed chronograph. It has a moon phase, of course, and that beautifully exposed tourbillon, which has been inset into the dial magnificently. Of course, that fusée and chain system is a rare feature on a dress watch or any wristwatch, really, because it's impractical and really not very well suited to a wristwatch. That said, though, it is an interesting feature to have in a watch. Equally, this watch is a perpetual calendar, which is very beautifully displayed, but very classically displayed on the dial, in an elegant and simple manner. Equally, it does have that moon phase, which is beautifully placed at 12 o'clock to further the classical elegance and beauty of this watch. With that beautiful crocodile grain strap and that very classical dial with those blued hands, it really is clear to see that this is the pinnacle of classical German watchmaking, and truly is a wonderful example of what watchmaking can be, at, of course, a very high price point, but nonetheless, this does demonstrate what is capable and what is possible in this world of watchmaking. Now, the following watch is one which I think, or at least I thought, was going to be my favourite watch at the show, and this is the new MB&F LM7 Aquapod. This is MB&F's very creative response to the concept of a bezel dive watch. And of course the dive watch has been with us for many years now, since the early 50s, and has obviously been refined greatly. But here this is a take on a watch which isn't a dive watch, but is trying to portray that classic sense of depth to a watch which can resist water, despite the fact that this watch is only water resistant to 50 metres, although really I can't imagine anyone swimming with a £100,000 watch. Two variants of this watch are available. There is a grade 5 titanium version with the blue bezel, which is available in 33 models of the full run of 99. The other 66 are gold versions with a without the blue bezel, which I think is a shame, but I can understand why the blue wouldn't go with the gold. In this case, though, I think the watch does look absolutely superb with that blue ceramic bezel, with that convex shape surrounding that wonderful central segment of the watch. Of course, it's no stretch of the imagination how this watch is designed to look like a jellyfish, in its form and the way it sits on the wrist. It has incredible presence, 53.8mm across, making it the first round watch for MB&F. Now that central section, it has the time displayed on discs, which are titanium and aluminium for lightness. The movement of this watch is also incredible, with a form which really hasn't been seen elsewhere, with the movement stacked in a small pile in the middle. But equally, the back with the platinum rotor is another spectacle to behold. Also, at the centre of that movement is that heart, that tourbillon, which I think really does complement the life in this watch. Now, I would easily say that this watch is the most creative watch at SIHH 2017, with its fantastic form, which doesn't really follow function, but certainly is an incredible piece aesthetically. Now, the final watch on this list was going to be the Jaeger-LeCoultre Geophysique Tourbillon, which is an incredible watch, which I would certainly suggest you go and have a look at, with a low-resistance balance wheel, and the Gyro Lab system, as well as that fantastic flying tourbillon. But really, the final watch on this list could only be one watch, and it's my new favourite watch, to be honest with you. I've absolutely fallen in love with this watch. Obviously, it's a dream watch, something which can never really be acquired for you and I, but nonetheless, it's an incredible piece, and certainly one which I hope to see in life at some point. This is the Vacheron Constantin Celestia Astronomical Grand, and this is a white gold 45mm by 13.6mm dress watch, which is large when one first thinks about it, but the full design of this watch I think really does work with that size and use the full size of this watch to its full potential. This is one of those watches where one actually doesn't know where to start with regards to talking about the complications and the innovations going into this watch. This watch has 6 spring barrels, which gives it a power reserve of 3 weeks, which is truly incredible considering the amount of complications that are run on this watch, and truly does boggle the mind with regards to what's been done here. Equally, it has an enormous number of different complications, both on the front and the rear of the watch. On the front, we see the equation of time hand, which is that hand with the sun on the end. We also have the hour and the minute, but equally have the sunrise and sunset times, which are also a fantastic complication to see here, and certainly an interesting one. On the right-hand side of the dial, we also see a pointer date, and also we see the seasons with the equinox shown, as well as the solstices, which is another interesting touch on this watch. Equally, we also do have the various zodiac signs, which are shown just above that wheel. We can also see on the left-hand side of the watch the moon phase, which is clearly shown, so one can see where the moon is in relation to the amount of days. Above that, we see a Mariograph, which demonstrates the way the height of the tides in relation to the sun and the moon, and the gravitational pull on the Earth, which is certainly an incredible feature to see, and one which I haven't seen before. Beside this, we see the day and the month, which is again an interesting complication, and one which certainly suits the dial very nicely with those clean and crisp cutouts through which one can see these wheels. Now, what I find so appealing about this watch is the manner in which it's entirely been executed with this modern touch and this modern aesthetic in that those three colours of gold, grey and white, really, which work together to produce a very subdued yet very classically elegant watch. Also, on the case back of this watch, we see further complications which add to the sheer beauty of this watch. On the case back, we see this sapphire disc star chart with this second sapphire disc in this darker colour, which shows the visible area. This also, this of course moves to further demonstrate what one can see in the night sky, which is another beautiful feature which really does add to this celestial concept of this watch. Now, around the edge of the dial, we can also see the I call this a dial, to be honest, because it though it's a case back, it does actually demonstrate facts and interesting things. So I think I'll continue referring to it as a dial. Here we also do see the power reserve running around the edge, following that interesting colour scheme this watch follows. Now, something not to be ignored is that tourbillon at 6 o'clock, which isn't seen from the front of the watch and is quite discreet, to be brutally honest, but certainly is there and does account for the movement of the Earth. Anyway, I shall conclude this video here with this beautiful Vacheron Constantin. Now, please do leave your comments down below as to which watches interested you the most at SIHH, because it truly was an incredible show with some fantastic watches on display. Now, I did include the ones which I thought were the most interesting technologically and design-wise, but please do leave your comments as to the ones which you liked the most. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please do like, share and subscribe to help the channel and to see more content. So thank you very much for watching. This is I'm on the Watch Guy, over and out.